Beloved people of God, listen carefully. There are seasons when God begins to open the eyes of his children, not to make them suspicious, not to make them hateful, but to make them discerning. Because in the realm of the spirit, ignorance is not innocence. Ignorance is permission. And if you do not know the kinds of spiritual influences you are into your environment, into your atmosphere, even into your home, you may find yourself battling attacks that did not come from Satan directly. They came from the people you opened your doors to. The home is not just a building. The home is an altar. The home is a gate in the spirit. The home is a spiritual atmosphere God intends to use to shape your mind, strengthen your convictions, and protect your destiny. And so when the wrong people step into a home, they don't just bring their bodies, they bring their atmospheres, they bring their covenants. They bring their altars. They bring their spiritual permissions. And many believers suffer not because they are evil, not because they lack prayer, but because they lack discernment. There are people whose presence opens the door for demonic traffic. Their presence empowers spiritual oppression. Their presence weakens your prayer life, drains your joy, and exposes your destiny to monitoring spirits. And if you must rise in power, authority, and sensitivity, you must learn to guard the gates of your home with wisdom. Tonight, let me show you 5 kinds of people you must be very careful to welcome repeatedly into your home. I'm not teaching hate. I'm teaching discernment. I'm not teaching suspicion. I'm teaching spiritual intelligence. And as you listen, may God open your eyes. The first group of people you must be careful about are people who carry habitual bitterness. Hear me, bitterness is not just an emotion. Bitterness is a spirit. It is a portal that gives access to demonic influence. There are people who move with bitterness like a garment. Everywhere they enter, they pollute the atmosphere with accusation, anger, insult, and resentment. When they step into your home, suddenly the harmony between husband and wife begins to break. Suddenly your mind becomes restless. Suddenly small issues become explosions because bitterness is contagious. It imparts an atmosphere. And demons thrive where bitterness exists. The Bible calls bitterness a root. And anywhere a root grows, it produces fruit. When you allow someone whose heart is full of offense to sit in your living room for hours, their words become seeds, their complaints become invitations to spirits of strife. If you must protect your home, protect it from carriers of bitterness. There are people who never have anything good to say about anyone. They speak, and the atmosphere shifts. They criticize, and your confidence begins to die. They complain, and suddenly you feel heavy. This is not personality, it is a spirit. And if you expose your home to it, you will begin to battle unnecessary warfare. You must love them. You must pray for them. But you must guard your space, because the home is where your destiny rests. The second kind of people to be careful with are chronic gossips and slanderers. Many believers underestimate the spiritual danger of gossip. Gossip is not entertainment, it is an altar. A gossiping tongue becomes a ladder for demonic influence. When you welcome gossipers into your house, you are welcoming the spirits that fuel gossip. These are spirits that destroy relationships, destroy trust, destroy honor, and break spiritual covering. There are people who come to your home, sit on your couch, eat your food, and while they are there, they tear apart the reputation of others. They speak as though they love you, but they are feeding your home with dishonor. And every atmosphere of dishonor becomes vulnerable to demonic infiltration. A gossiping person does not just carry stories, they carry spiritual contamination. Have you noticed how after a gossiping person leaves your home, your heart suddenly becomes judgmental? You begin to view people with suspicion. You begin to fight battles in your mind. That is because gossip opens the door to accusation. And accusation is the ministry of the enemy. There are people who must never become comfortable gossiping in your home. Shut that door. Guard your atmosphere. Protect your peace. The third group to watch out for are people who walk with unclean lifestyles. I am not talking about sinners needing salvation. Everyone needs mercy. Everyone needs grace. I am talking about people who deliberately practice darkness, people who dabble in immorality, witchcraft, manipulation, addictive perv, racions, and secret altars. These people carry spiritual influences that do not leave when they leave. When they step into your bedroom, when they sit on your bed, when they touch your pillows, when they move through your corridors, they transfer spiritual stains. Some of you have had dreams that were not yours, attacks that were not yours, oppressions that were not yours. And it began after someone with a lifestyle of impurity stepped into your home. Because impurity is not just a behavior, it is a magnet for spirits. It is a signal in the spirit realm. There are people you invite with innocence, but they come with altars. They come with covenants made in secret. They come with familiar spirits trailing their footsteps. And because you love them, you forget to discern them. And while you sleep, your home becomes a battleground. Listen carefully. Your heart can be opened, but your door must be guarded. God loves the sinner, but your home is not a rehabilitation center for unrepentant darkness. You must be wise. The fourth kind of people to avoid are people who cannot celebrate your rising. Envy is a dangerous spirit. It is subtle but deadly. A jealous person may smile at you, but their spirit resents your progress. And resentment carries a presence. Envy opens the door to manipulation, sabotage, and spiritual attacks. When you allow someone who envies your marriage, envies your children, envies your progress, envies your spiritual growth to move freely in your home, they may not physically harm you, but their spirit invites warfare. There are people who sit at your table but hate what God is doing in your life. They smile, but their heart resists you. They congratulate you, but they are irritated by your blessing. And when such people enter your home, their presence fights your atmosphere. They may not speak wicked words, but their spirit speaks. You will feel strange heaviness. You will feel unnecessary pressure because envy is a portal and the enemy uses envy to plant arrows. Some of you know what I am saying. There are people who left your home and within 24 hours, confusion started. Arguments arose. Favors were blocked. Peace evaporated. Not because they cursed you openly, but because envy opened the door for demonic traffic. If someone cannot rejoice with you sincerely, love them, bless them, but keep your home protected. Finally, the fifth kind of people you must guard against are people who carry an atmosphere of rebellion and dishonor. Rebellion is not just a behavior, it is a spirit. It resists authority. It mocks order. It breaks protocol. And when you allow rebellious people into your home, people who speak against men of God, speak against parents, speak against authority, speak against spiritual covering, you are permitting an atmosphere that will eventually attack your own alignment. A rebellious person carries a cloud. They may be charming, they may be intelligent, they may be humorous, but their spirit resists divine structure. And when you welcome that spirit into your home, your children become stubborn. Your prayer life becomes cold. Your sensitivity becomes dull. Because the presence of rebellion weakens spiritual authority. Rebellion attracts spirits of lawlessness, confusion, and disobedience. And if you allow such people to plant their words in your home, you will fight battles you never planned for. A home that hosts dishonor will eventually lose covering. Guard your gates. Protect your altar. Maintain a spiritual climate where the presence of God can dwell. My beloved, listen, I am not teaching fear. I'm teaching wisdom. I am not teaching isolation. I am teaching discernment. Love everyone, but guard your home. Bless everyone, but protect your altar. Honor everyone, but preserve your atmosphere. Because in the spirit, atmospheres matter more than furniture. Presence matters more than decoration. What enters your home enters your destiny. There are people God will use you to help, but you cannot open your home to every influence. You can counsel someone without letting them sleep in your house. You can love someone without letting their bitterness rest on your couch. You can support someone without letting their rebellion shape your environment. Discernment is not lack of love. Discernment is proof of maturity. The home should be a place of peace, of prayer, of clarity, of divine encounters. And for that to happen, you must guard your gates. Some of you, after hearing this message, will go back and cleanse your home. You will pray over your rooms. You will launch your doors. You will speak over your atmosphere, and you will feel the shift. Because when the wrong people stop entering, the wrong spirits stop entering. Tonight, may God grant you discernment. May He open your eyes. May He give you wisdom to know who to welcome and who to love from a distance. May He protect your home, your atmosphere, your altar, in the name that is above every name. And there are moments when God begins to train your spirit to sense atmospheres, the same way your skin senses temperature. You may not see anything with your physical eyes. You may not hear anything with your natural ears, but suddenly something in your spirit becomes alert. Your peace becomes restless. Your discernment becomes awakened, because atmospheres speak. Spirits speak. Presence speaks. There are people you welcome into your home, and suddenly your children begin to act strangely. They were peaceful. Suddenly they become agitated. They were joyful. Suddenly they become irritable. They were prayerful. Suddenly they become cold. And you begin to think it is just mood swings. No, it is spiritual transference. Because spirits do not ask for permission. They follow alignment. When someone with a troubled spirit steps into your environment, the vibration of your home responds. This is why in certain families, the moment a particular relative arrives, arguments begin, accusations begin, accidents happen, misunderstandings erupt out of nowhere. Because that individual is not just a body, they are a carrier of an atmosphere. And if you lack discernment, you will treat everything as coincidence. But in the spirit, there are no coincidences, only consequences of what you welcome or reject. There are also people whose presence weakens your spiritual fire. When they step into your environment, your hunger for God begins to die. Your passion for prayer becomes shallow. Your focus weakens. Your mind becomes distracted. You suddenly feel drained, even though you were full of strength before they came. These are spiritual indicators. God is communicating something. The spirit realm does not lie. Some people carry a fragrance of distraction. Others carry a fragrance of compromise. Others carry a fragrance of spiritual dryness. And every time they come into your environment, your spiritual atmosphere begins to drop. You stop praying with intensity. You stop hearing God with clarity. You stop engaging in scripture with hunger. Not because you suddenly became weak, but because someone's presence has imposed a lesser atmosphere into your space. And hear me, atmospheres do not leave quickly. When someone with a contaminated presence visits your home, sleep in your guest room, or even sit on your prayer chair, the residue of the atmosphere can linger for days. You start wondering why your mind is restless, why your dreams are strange, why your peace feels interrupted. You may rebuke and rebuke, yet the pressure remains until the Holy Spirit reminds you it is not an attack from nowhere. It is the remnant of a presence you entertained. Some people come into your home and they don't speak a negative word, but their silence carries spiritual influence. When they sit down, you suddenly feel heaviness. When they touch your furniture, you feel agitation. When they leave, your spirit feels drained. And you begin to say, I don't understand why I feel this way. That is spiritual intelligence signaling you. Your spirit is more accurate than your emotions. When your spirit warns you, do not ignore it. There are also people whose presence becomes a doorway for monitoring spirits. You begin to feel as though your life is being watched. Doors that were once open suddenly close. Opportunities that flowed smoothly suddenly stop. Dreams that once brought direction suddenly become confusing. Because someone entered carrying a connection in the spirit realm that monitors destinies. Not necessarily out of wickedness, but because they are spiritually open portals. Anyone spiritually porous, spiritually exposed, spiritually unprotected becomes a channel for other influences to move freely. This is why the enemy uses relationships as ladders. He uses conversations as invitations. He uses access as authorization. If he cannot attack you directly, he will attack you through someone who has access to your environment. And if that person is spiritually vulnerable, spiritually compromised, or spiritually darkened, your home becomes a battleground the moment they cross your threshold. There are people who come into your home and instantly the spiritual ranking of that environment changes. The peace reduces. The light dims. The sensitivity drops. You may not know what they're involved in, what they opened themselves to, what they submitted themselves under. But the moment they step inside, the spirit they fellowship with follows them. And your home becomes a point of convergence. And let me tell you, spirits are legalistic. They respond to access, not emotion. It is not about whether you love the person. It is about what their presence authorizes. The spirit realm does not care about your sentiments. It recognizes gates. It recognizes alignment. It recognizes open doors. Sometimes you don't even know what someone is carrying until you allow them to enter the intimate spaces of your environment. Because the deeper the access, the deeper the influence. Inviting someone into your living room is not the same as inviting someone into your bedroom. Access is spiritual. Location is spiritual. Proximity is spiritual. Some people should remain at your gate. Some people should remain outside your compound. Some people should remain at the level of greetings and blessings. Because if you give them the intimacy of your home, you give their spirits the intimacy of your atmosphere. And when your atmosphere is contaminated, your discernment becomes dull. You stop hearing God the way you used to. You stop sensing danger the way you used to. You stop perceiving direction the way you used to. And suddenly the enemy begins to take advantage of the dullness. This is why you must learn to protect your home with the same seriousness you protect your destiny. Because your home is part of your destiny. Your home is a sanctuary. Your home is where you retreat to refuel. Your home is where your spirit is supposed to rest and recharge. When the atmosphere of your home is wrong, even your prayer life suffers. Even your dreams become polluted. Even your convictions begin to weaken. There are people who enter your home and immediately your peace disappears. There are people who enter and your confidence drops. There are people who enter and your joy evaporates. That is not normal. That is not psychological. That is spiritual. And you must discern between loving people and giving them unrestricted access. Love is universal. Access is selective. Compassion is for everyone. Your altar is not. There are also individuals whose presence introduces confusion into the environment. You may not detect it immediately, but after they leave your home, suddenly decisions that were once clear become blurry. Directions that were once simple become complicated. Thoughts that were once aligned become scattered. Because confusion is a spirit, and some people are carriers of it. When they enter your home, their internal disorganization begins to reflect in your atmosphere. Here, there are people who have never known stability in their lives. And if you do not discern them, their instability begins to touch your environment. Their conversations are unstable. Their emotions are unstable. Their convictions are unstable. And wherever they go, they unconsciously release that atmosphere. And this is why some of you noticed that after hosting certain people, your home suddenly became noisy in the spirit. Your dreams became chaotic. Your thoughts became unsettled. You did not just host a person, you hosted the atmosphere of confusion they walk with. And there are people who have never known peace internally. They smile outwardly, but within them is turmoil, unrest, and deep spiritual disturbance. When they enter your home, the spiritual resonance of their inner turmoil mixes with your peace. Suddenly, you lose the tranquility that once governed your environment. You begin pacing, you begin worrying, you begin battling anxiety that was never yours. That is the power of spiritual exchange. Some people carry an atmosphere of fear. They may not speak fear, but their very presence invites it. You begin to sense unnecessary tension. You begin to feel like something inches wrong. You begin to sense demonic activity heightened in your environment. Not because Satan suddenly chose your house, but because someone who walked in is spiritually open to fear. And fear is one of the fastest gateways for dark spirits. Fear attracts what it imagines. Fear pulls what it entertains. Fear opens what it agrees with. And if you allow a fearful person to rest comfortably in your home, their atmosphere begins to mingle with your spiritual climate. Suddenly your children have nightmares. Suddenly you hear strange sounds. Suddenly you wake up at odd hours with a sense of oppression. It's not always an attack targeted at you. Sometimes it's an overflow of what someone brought in. There are also individuals whose presence introduces delay. They walk with an atmosphere of stagnation. Everywhere they go, things slow down. Doors take longer to open. Progress takes longer to manifest. And if you lack discernment, you will begin to notice unexplained slowness in your life after they visit your environment. Not because they intentionally attacked you, but because delay has become a spirit that travels with them. And there are people who carry heavy ancestral burdens, tethers from their lineage, battles from their bloodline, altars from generations past. They may love God, they may be innocent, but their lineage is still in warfare. Their spiritual identity is still entangled with covenants they have not broken. When they enter your home, those covenants become spiritually aware of the shift in atmosphere. And if you don't understand spiritual technology, you will think it is emotional disturbance, when in truth, it is the collision of altars. Have you ever wondered why sometimes when a certain person enters your environment, you begin to feel spiritual resistance increase? You pray, and the atmosphere feels heavy. You worship, and the room feels locked. You try to read scripture, but your mind wanders because their presence and the spirits attached to them interfere with your spiritual frequency. Some people carry a spiritual weight that is not theirs. It is inherited. And when they enter your environment, that weight begins to distribute. You begin to feel exhausted. You begin to feel spiritually drained. You begin to feel unusually tired even without activity. Not because you are physically exhausted, but because your atmosphere is trying to resist an unfamiliar weight. And let me tell you, your home is one of the easiest places for transference of spirits because it is the most intimate expression of your life. Your home is your resting place, your thinking place, your prayer place. And any presence that enters your home enters your life indirectly. There are also people who are spiritually open doors without knowing it. They live without covering, without prayer, without alignment, without spiritual authority. They wander spiritually. They drift through atmospheres unprotected. And because they are spiritually porous, spirits move through them easily. They don't have to be evil, just unguarded. And when you allow such individuals too much presence in your home, your atmosphere becomes exposed. Suddenly you sense an increase in spiritual noise. Suddenly your ability to hear God becomes interfered with. Suddenly your prophetic sensitivity becomes diluted. Because whoever carries no covering will compromise the covering in any place they dwell for too long. There are also individuals who have made secret agreements, knowingly or unknowingly. Agreements with people who function under dark influences. Agreements with Wrens who practice strange spiritual activities. Agreements with individuals tied to alternative belief systems that contradict the purity of your atmosphere. They may not practice darkness themselves, but their connections open them up to contamination. And when they enter your home, those spiritual connections are activated. You begin to sense a shift. You begin to feel watched. You begin to feel spiritually monitored. Not because you are under direct attack, but because someone connected to them spiritually has gained microscopic access to your environment. There are people who speak lightly, but their words carry demonic permission. There are people who joke in your home, but what they say carries spiritual consequences. There are people who casually mention things that shift your spiritual climate because words are seeds, and some people carry seeds from wrong soil. Some individuals carry atmospheres of unbelief. When they enter your home, your faith drops. Your confidence in God becomes weakened. Your expectation shrinks. You begin to question what God already told you. Not because you suddenly doubted, but because unbelief is contagious. It is a spiritual presence. A force. And when someone with strong unbelief enters your home, it confronts the atmosphere of faith you have cultivated. There are also people whose presence introduces spiritual laziness. Your desire to pray becomes weaker. Your desire to worship becomes shallow. Your desire to seek God becomes diluted. Not because you are backsliding, but because the presence of certain individuals carries a spiritual climate that opposes devotion. There are individuals who carry atmospheres of spiritual dryness. When they enter your home, the fire on your altar begins to flicker. You may not feel it instantly, but give it a few hours and the climate of your house starts to lose that sharpness, that purity, that sacred electricity. Dryness is a spiritual condition, and it leaks the same way water leaks from a broken vessel. The moment they begin to talk, to sit, to laugh, their spiritual drought begins to settle into your environment. If you are not sensitive, you will think you are just tired or emotionally distracted. But in truth, the fire is adjusting to an atmosphere that cannot sustain spiritual combustion. Some people carry an atmosphere of spiritual noise. Their minds are noisy. Air spirits are noisy. Their souls are unsettled. And when they step into your environment, that noise begins to fill your space. Suddenly, you cannot think clearly. Suddenly, you cannot meditate. Suddenly, you cannot hear your own thoughts. Because spiritual noise is not heard with ears. It is sensed in the soul. It disturbs your alignment. It irritates your discernment. It interrupts your internal balance. There are people who carry unresolved battles with identity, battles with direction, battles with secret struggles, battles with emotional wounds. Their lives are constantly in spiritual friction. When they enter your home, that friction enters with them. Suddenly, your home feels tense. The atmosphere becomes unsettled. You sense an internal wrestling that did not exist before they came. There are individuals who carry atmospheres of heavy words spoken over them. Words of curses, words of limitations, words spoken by angry parents, words spoken by offended mentors, words spoken in anger, bitterness, or jealousy. They may be innocent, they may be unaware, but those words hover around their lives like spiritual clouds. When they visit your home, those words attempt to find new ground to influence. You begin to feel unnecessary pressure. Strange heaviness rests in the air. Your spirit becomes burdened without explanation. Some people walk with spiritual attachments from past relationships. They may have broken up physically, but spiritually, soul ties and emotional cords still follow them. And when such individuals enter your home, those spiritual attachments become awakened. You may begin to feel strange emotional vibrations, unexpected thoughts, sudden temptations, or familiar spirits passing through your environment. Because soul ties do not stay silent. They travel with the individual until they are broken. There are individuals whose lineage has been dedicated to dark altars, perhaps not by them, but by grandparents, ancestors, or family figures. These altars trail them. They affect their dreams, their patterns, their opportunities. And when they come into your home, those ancestral altars become spiritually aware of a shift in territory. They begin to examine your atmosphere. If your altar is stronger, they remain silent. But if your atmosphere is weak, they attempt influence. Some people carry atmospheres of burden, a weight that comes from ye. Hours of disappointment, years of frustration, years of betrayal. Their hearts are heavy, and that heaviness enters every environment with them. When they visit your home, you begin to feel sad for no reason. You feel tired even after resting. You feel emotionally stretched, not because you are depressed, but because you absorb the burdens of someone who walked into your space unfiltered. There are people whose lives are spiritually noisy because they are in seasons of warfare. Their dreams are violent. Their nights are restless. Their sleep is troubled. And when you allow them to sleep in your home, the warfare that battles them begins to appear in your dreams. You begin to see strange shadows, strange figures, strange faces, because battles follow people. And when those people relocate, even temporarily, the battlefield relocates with them. There are individuals who carry an atmosphere of deep woundedness. Their hearts have been broken. their trust shattered, their confidence crushed. Wounds attract spirits of discouragement, spirits of despair, spirits of rejection. When such people come into your home, that atmosphere of rejection begins to speak. Suddenly, you start doubting whether people truly love you. Doubts rise about friendships, relationships, your purpose, even your worth. These are spiritual projections triggered by another person's pain. Some individuals have spiritual markings, experiences they have encountered in the spirit realm, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through rituals they did not understand, sometimes through objects they unknowingly accepted. These markings act as spiritual beacons. When they enter your home, the realm of the spirit becomes active. You begin to sense a strange awareness, as though your house has come under spiritual observation. This is not always an attack. Sometimes it is a detection of spiritual presence that comes with the person. And there are people who carry atmospheres of murmuring and complaining. Not just the words, the spirit of it. They carry dissatisfaction as a climate. When they come into your home, you begin to see flaws where you once saw blessings. You begin to feel ungrateful. You begin to feel irritated with what God has given you. Because murmuring attracts the presence of spirits that blind gratitude and silence worship. There are individuals whose lifestyle attracts spiritual parasites. Small demonic influences that feed on emotional instability, sexual immorality, uncontrolled anger, envy, addictions. These spirits hover around them and travel with them. And if you allow such individuals to linger in your home, those parasites begin searching for new entry points. They may attempt to influence your sleep, your emotions, your thoughts, even your children. Some people carry an atmosphere of hopelessness. Their words may be neutral, but their presence drains hope. You begin to feel like nothing will work. You begin to see your future as small. You begin to doubt your calling, not because hope left you, but because you allowed someone who walks with hopelessness to influence your environment. There are people who live under constant spiritual attack, and when they visit your home, the attack temporarily relocates. You begin to feel the pressure they normally feel. You begin to sense the unrest they normally battle. You begin to see the dreams they usually have. Their presence becomes a temporary connection point for the spirits that fight them. Beloved, hear me. Your home is more than walls, furniture, and decoration. Your home is an altar. Your home is a gate. Your home is a spiritual embassy. When you allow the wrong presence into your atmosphere, you are not just entertaining a visitor. You are granting access to spirits that study, influence, and sometimes attempt to invade your destiny. You cannot afford to be careless with access in this season. Too much is at stake. Your peace is at stake. Your children are at stake. Your prayer life is at stake. Your discernment is at stake. Your spiritual clarity is at stake. Your destiny is too precious to be exposed to environments that weaken your fire. If someone's presence lowers your discernment, you must create distance. If someone's presence introduces confusion, you must set boundaries. If someone's presence disturbs your peace, you must guard your atmosphere. If someone's presence awakens warfare, you must protect your altar. It is not hatred. It is wisdom. It is not pride. It is preservation. It is not unforgiveness. It is spiritual intelligence. You are not designed to be a dumping ground for strange spirits. You are not called to sacrifice your destiny on the altar of emotional attachment. You were not assigned to mingle your atmosphere with every presence that knocks on your door. Your home must become a sanctuary of purity, a dwelling of peace, a habitation of the presence of God. Anything that threatens that environment, anything that weakens the fire, anything that interrupts the harmony, anything that shifts your spiritual atmosphere must be discerned, confronted, and removed. Because the truth is this: whatever enters your home enters your life. Whatever influences your atmosphere influences your destiny. Whatever you tolerate in your environment will eventually grow in authority. Now is the time to rise with boldness and say, my home is not for everything. My spirit is not for everyone. My atmosphere is not a playground for strange influences. Guard your gate. Protect your altar. Preserve your atmosphere. Defend your peace. Because when your home is spiritually secured, your destiny becomes unstoppable. Your mind becomes clear. Your dreams become prophetic. Your prayer life becomes fiery. And your future becomes aligned with heaven. And may God give you the courage, the discernment, and the spiritual intelligence to separate yourself from every presence that carries darkness, contamination, confusion, or spiritual interference. Your home must become a place where only God's presence reigns, where his peace governs, and where his fire never goes out.